most wretched one of that dynasty, Maharaj Pariksit, because of his having broken the laws of etiquette by insulting my father. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakoya Chakshurun Minitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swam Parantikam Namashreshtram Manuapi Sachiputram Matra Svarupam Rupam Tasya Grajam Urupurim Atharim Gosvaratim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Patitripaya Shri Gurum Tanmatosmi Hey Guru Gyanaradi Nabando Swaranandai Karunagaika Sindhu Vrindavana Sinahita Avatara Prasida Brada Pranaya Prachara Hey Dinabandhu Karunagaika Sindhu Guru Prasade Mahimandu Mure Vakshaparade Bhagapapakande Tatpada Padme Stimatisti Krishne Navyo Patam Apachitim Kalayas Brahmanus Sapti Kritam Ridumuras Marantas Yontarvahis Tanubritam Mashudam Vidumam Acharya Cheta Vapusa Svagatim Vinakti Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Vivishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadesha Tarine Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratuse Namaha Ananda Leelaya Maya Vigrahaya Imamba Divyachari Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Sapradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopeshva Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sudhe Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarundascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Durgame Patimanantasya Sakalat Paragatir Mahur Swakripaya Sitane Santa Santa Abhundam Ye Mahanta Kilaham Saputa Jagat Paviti Karanartamagata Deta Uchistana Sevanam Dumbishudam Richanam Dravina. Vishal Prabhu will join you. He has to go to work.
Yes, he's going to work.
So he doesn't come on Monday?
No, he joins.
Okay. This verse is very interesting. And the next verse, I think I'll also read the next verse, just because the next one's very short. Tatobye asharam balo galis sarpa kalevaram pittaram viksha dukharto muktakanto rurodadha. Thereafter, when the boy returned to the hermitage, he saw a snake on his father's shoulder, and out of grief he cried very loudly. The boy was not happy because he committed a great mistake, and he wanted to be relieved of the burden on his heart by crying. So after entering the hermitage and seeing his father in that condition, he cried loudly so that he might be relieved. But it was too late. The father regretted the whole incident. One thing which Srila Prabhupada mentions here is this verse which says, Kulagaram, which means the wretched of the dynasty. That stood out to me. And the Shringi, the Brahmana boy, is accusing Maharishi Parikshit of being Kulagaram, or the wretched of the dynasty, a stain on his family lineage. But Srila Prabhupada is saying, factually, the Brahmana boy himself was. So, because only from him did the Brahmana caste become powerless, like the snake whose poison teeth are broken. So, in the beginning of the first canto, it says, Prayen alpa sidasabhya kalau vasmin yage janaha manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya ritadraha. That Kali Yuga is a very unfortunate atmosphere. And one of the reasons why it's so unfortunate is due to, I just want to pull this up. Because people are, the exact word I'm looking for, well, kalau means specifically the age of coral. So Prabhupada says they are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. The Sanskrit actually doesn't contain the word quarrelsome. But regardless, Prabhupada indicates that there. And we can practically see that the age of Kali specifically means people who are born here due to the influence of the time and also due to the influence of their previous karma. They have a desire to take birth here. And their nature, like we were reading yesterday, Dhambo Darpa, Vimanascha, Paryusam, that they're proud, and because of their pride, Paryusam, they speak very harshly. So one of the qualities of Kali Yuga is that people are unable to appreciate each other. This is a specific quality of the Kali Yuga. And Srila Prabhupada, he has some interesting classes speaking about how devotees should deal with each other. And he was not so happy with some of his disciples and how they would quarrel with each other so much. He was always trying to encourage them. There's this famous letter which he sent to Jayapataka Maharaj, and you don't really know what Jayapataka Maharaj said to Prabhupada, but Prabhupada said something along the lines that tolerance and cooperation, this is our program. So to learn how to tolerate each other and to learn how to cooperate with each other in Kali Yuga is extremely important. And furthermore, Srila Prabhupada in this verse, I'm trying to remember the beginning, not Nunam Pramartha. Natevadu Swarthagatemi. No. What is the verse? I was just thinking of it this morning. The verse from Rishabdev, right after Nunam Pramartha Kudatevi Karma. Just the first line. Tapo Divyam Puraka Yena Shatvam.
That's the first one.
What's the beginning?
No, the first one.
Nayam deha deha bhajam nirloke nastam karamate vidbhujamye. Tapo divyam puraka yena shatvam shuryayate tasma ramasokyam tvananta. So there's a famous lecture which Srila Prabhupada gave in Vrindavan, I think in 1976. And he's speaking about this verse, Tapo divyam puraka yena shatvam. And he's specifically emphasizing Tapo divyam. And he says in Kali Yuga, what is the Tapo divyam? Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnana amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. So Srila Prabhupada seems to indicate in the verse that the Tapo divyam, the austerity which one has to undertake in Kali Yuga, is not going out into the forest and performing intense austerities, reducing sleeping, reducing eating, But Srila Prabhupada seems to indicate that physical austerities will naturally come for one who is cultivating this Trinadapi Sanichena Charorapi Sahishna Amanina Manadena Kirtanina Sadhati. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he mentions this verse in his instructions to Raghunath Das Goswami, Manamandanahan Krishna Nama Shadalabe Braje Radha Krishna Manasa Payive, that don't take any respect for yourself, give all respect to others. And Krishna Nama Shadalabe, always chant the holy names of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, when discussing the future of his movement, he would say that there's nothing which can destroy this movement. There's no physical calamity which can disrupt the Sankirtan mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we've seen that devotees in the most austere conditions have been able to hold forth and persevere in very, very challenging material circumstances. There's this book, Legacy of Love. Has anyone heard of this book? It's about Ladini Mataji. She was in New Vrindavan around the same time as Radhanath Maharaj, and she was a very advanced soul. It said that she did all 8 offerings for these Jagannath deities, which are in New Vrindavan at the time. And she practically would hardly sleep and hardly eat. But she read Srila Prabhupada's books. When was she reading Srila Prabhupada's books? In 15-minute increments between the offerings. So in the course of a day, she would read for about an hour and a half to 2 to 3 hours. So between the gaps, she would read Srila Prabhupada's books. And by doing this, after years, she realized Prabhupada's books very deeply. And she herself was a very surrendered soul. And eventually she developed a deep desire to preach by the mercy of Lord Nityananda. So she went to Africa with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And she was preaching in Africa. And if you read this book, you can see her letters or her journal, I think she was keeping, her diary. And she was saying that the modes of nature are so heavy here. They're so heavy that people are in a completely abominable condition, eating human flesh, eating anything, like very, very violent towards each other. And just the atmosphere is very tamasic, is what she said. In Africa, there's still, in the villages, a still heavy influence of voodoo. I've heard of Christian missionaries going into places in Africa where a woman, due to the curse of a witch doctor, remained pregnant for nearly 10 years. The pain of pregnancy. She wasn't able to give birth. She just remained pregnant for 10 years due to the curse of a witch doctor. So the atmosphere is very, very tamasic, and she was in a place which was politically conflicted. And they were trying to flee the country, but they were apprehended by the tyrant leader. And the soldiers, when they apprehended them, they lined up all the men, and then they separated the women and the children, because the women and children would be put into prostitution and slavery, and the men would just be killed. So they were in this circumstance, and she was put to the side with the women and children, and then the men were being lined up on a firing line, hands behind their back, on their knees, guns to their head, and this is going to be the end. And she, right before the soldiers were about to kill these devotees, she jumped in front of the soldier and pushed the gun away, and she said, "You can't kill these devotees. They're Krishna's devotees. You can't kill them." And then she herself ended up leaving her body from the soldiers killing her. And of course, we know the stories of devotees in Russia. Naranjana Maharaj used to grow out a beard and long hair and take tours to Russia. When the Iron Curtain first opened, there was very regulated tours of the Soviet Union. So you stayed at a particular hotel, and there was a regimen which you had to follow, and Narendra Maharaj would grow out his hair and beard, and he would enter into the Soviet Union. And at night, he would slip away to a payphone, and then through a sleight of hand, he would be able to leave the group in the night. He would have to leave the hotel around 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And then through a sleight of hand, he would be able to go to this back room somewhere, which was a super confidential location, where there was about 20 or 30 people gathered to hear him speak. And when he would speak, he explains this in the book Krishna Protects His Devotees, talking about the history of the Russian Yatra. When he would speak, he would see people crying tears. And it's because it was the first time they had heard anyone say that God existed. They were so enchanted by the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So we see that even in the most war-torn and politically corrupted circumstances of the world, the Krishna consciousness movement can expand, and it will expand. So what is the thing which obstructs the expansion of the Sankirtan mission? And furthermore, what is the quality which causes us to become Kula Agaram, the wretched of the dynasty? Or in this circumstance, our Kula would be the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. What causes us to become a stain in that lineage? And as we see from this verse, when the personality Kali entered the Brahmana, that's what caused him to be Kula Agaram, the wretched of his dynasty. So to continue that quote, which I was explaining before, before I explained those stories of Ladini, Mataji, and Ranjana Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada explains there's nothing which can destroy this movement from the outside. The only thing which can destroy this movement is that which comes from inside. And Srila Prabhupada in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when he's speaking on this verse, Hati Mati, the mad elephant offense, he specifically gives two qualities of someone who has committed Vaishnava aparadh, and then the byproducts, the psychological byproduct of that. And it's not as, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not as dramatic as you would think it would be. Like when we read about Vaishnava aparadh in Chaitanya Charitamrita, like Gopala Chakravarti or Gopala Chapala, their Vaishnava aparadh results with them, their nose melting or them dying on the spot, or it's quite heavy. And so that's there. That can be the result of offending devotees, without a doubt. And furthermore, we see examples in the life of our most recent acharyas that Vaishnava aparadh can lead to weakness in one's vows. That's actually mentioned in the Bhakti Sandarbha. There's a gradual progression of Vaishnava aparadh maturing in the psychology of a living entity, and one loses the ability to uphold vows due to committing offenses to devotees. So, what was I trying to say? There was a point I was leading to. I lost my train of thought.
What causes one to become Kula?
Yeah, what causes one to become Kula? And then furthermore, Chifa Goswami explains that.
The Hati Mati.
Yeah, the Hati Mata. So that's the dramatic side of things, and that's there. We should respect it, but the explanation which Srila Prabhupada gives, which is a psychological response, which Jiva Goswami also explains, is that one becomes whimsical and independent. And whimsical can mean many things. Jiva Goswami gives this explanation that one loses the strength to perform their sadhana. From that lack of strength in performing their sadhana, they are unable to uphold their vows. Therefore, the austerity for the age of Kali is Trinadapi Sanichina Taroripi Sahishna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahati. Whenever there would be quarrel in the Gaudiya Math between two devotees, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would request them to come together and begin to glorify each other. And this glorification of devotees is an essential part of our process in Krishna consciousness, because through the appreciation of devotees, we are directly counteracting the influence of the age of Kali. And like I said, this is tapo divyam, it's an austerity. So initially our psychology in Kali Yuga will resist us finding the good in devotees and seeking out the divine qualities in devotees. But if we undergo that austerity and we begin to learn to appreciate the qualities of devotees, then what that does is it avails us of their association to get the very best from them. So Vritrasura says, Aham hare tavat par ekamula dasanu daso bhavata sasmi bhuya manasmarer tesu tergunam se ganitavat karma karutu kaya. When will that day come when I will be made the servant of your servants, and my mind, words, and body will be completely engaged in the service of the Lord? And Prabhupada says something along the lines, I don't know if it's this prayer or the prayers which precede it, that this is the essence of Krishna consciousness, this desiring the mercy of the devotees. Tandera charana sevi bhakta sanivas janame janame hoy e abhivas. We need to see in the course of our practicing Krishna consciousness that this is the appreciation which we're having for the devotees. There should actually be a deep sense of emotion in relationship to the devotees, that we should, when we meditate on them, when we think about them, we just think, wow, such a sincere soul giving their life to Krishna, such a sincere soul, despite the fact that they have to work a job, despite the fact that they have children, they're still chanting 16 rounds, studying Srila Prabhupada's books, serving the mission, sincerely trying to follow the instructions of their spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. And a brahmachari should think, I could never do that. I could never do such a thing. And they're able to do it. What an amazing devotee. What an amazing Vaishnava. They're like a representative of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the present day, a living example of what it means to be fixed up in the Grihastha ashram and actually making the Grihastha ashram an ashrama, a place of shelter from the material energy. And we're fortunate to have so many wonderful examples here in ISV of exalted Grihasthas. Specifically, I was appreciating the birthday of Srivas Pandit Prabhu. It would have been nice to have gone to the celebration I think they had on Saturday evening. I think they had I saw a post that they had some celebration for his birthday. It would have been nice to hear his glories and the amount of service that he's rendered to the ISV community. And I saw when I was taking prasadam, or I just finished taking prasadam and I was going and washing my hands, I saw Achyuta Kumar Prabhu affectionately glorifying Srivas Pandit Prabhu for everything that he's received from him. You could see it was an extremely heartfelt exchange from both sides. And we need these examples, and we need to be an example of these types of exchanges. We have to make it a point to go out of our way to encourage devotees, to be affectionate devotees, to devotees, and to try to serve the devotees in such a way that they want to bless us. Like you could see the way Achyuta Kumar was interacting with Srivas Pandit Prabhu. Anyone who's being interacted with that way, immediately they feel, let this person be successful in Krishna consciousness. And we need this because the whole focus of our practice of Krishna consciousness is the chanting of Krishna's names. So this verse, Prabhupada is reciting Trinadapi Sunichina. What's the purpose of our humility? What's the purpose of our respect? What's the purpose of our tolerance? It's to come to the point of being able to chant the names of Krishna in a mood of nir matsaram, non-envious chanting of the names of Krishna. This is the essence of the Krishna consciousness movement. This is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement, to create a culture amongst the society of devotees in which any living entity can come in contact with a non-envious chanting of Hari Sankirtan. And Srila Prabhupada explains that we have created the International Society for Krishna Consciousness for the purpose of facilitating the 6 loving exchanges amongst devotees. So when we are non-enviously chanting the names of Krishna, even if we have quarrel amongst ourselves, even if there's disagreements amongst ourselves, which are bound to happen, I'm not saying that these won't happen, that there'll be misunderstandings, there may be arguments, but the foundation should be a deep sense of respect and appreciation for the surrender and service which devotees are rendering to the Sankirtan mission. And when we enter into the chanting of purified kirtan, then all of the anarthas which prevent us from appreciating devotees, these fly away like birds. Like Maharaj was saying, that if you dance hard enough, some things will come out. Actually, I had asked him in Mayapur many years ago, I said, I know I'm supposed to be non-envious, but I still see there's envy in my heart. How do I get free from it? And he said, reading the Bhagavatam, and he said it also helps if you dance in kirtan the way you're dancing. Because if you're dancing hard enough, you may lose some coins, you may lose some phones, and some envy may also come flying out as well. So we need to take advantage of the association of devotees, because Sankirtan means complete kirtan. It means there's more than one. There's 2, 3, 4, and Kanagopal Prabhu was telling me that this Maha Sankirtan, which is most pleasing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I don't know where this reference is, but I believe him. It makes sense to me. 10,000 devotees chanting the names of Krishna is the most pleasing service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So how are we going to bring 10 million quarrelsome devotees together if we have a culture of disrespect, of fault-finding, of backbiting? It's not possible. The Maha Sankirtan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will only take place in a culture of respect, love, and trust. So this is how we prevent the age of Kali from entering this movement. Through threading around our neck the verse of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and actually making an effort to apply all dimensions of that verse. Sometimes we talk so much about humility, respect, and tolerance that we can forget that the purpose of that is Kirtaniya Sadahari. We're creating this culture for the purpose of inspiring the world to make their highest priority and their highest goal the continuous chanting of Krishna's holy names. Nirantar Namalau Kara Tulasi Sebon Achirache Pave Tabe Krishna Racha. Through the chanting of Krishna's names and the service of Srimati Tulsi Maharani, you will inevitably become attached to the lotus feet of Krishna. So attachment to Krishna means attachment to the chanting of his holy names, and the qualities most favorable to the chanting of the holy names and gives us access to the holy names is this mood of Trinadapi Sunijina. And this is what will protect us from the influence of Kali and allow us to be a decoration, a kulabhushana. Is that proper Sanskrit? I'm just making things up. Kulabhushana.
It's proper.
That's proper?
Yeah.
Okay. I passed. A+. Kulabhushana, a gem in our Gaudiya Vaishnava family. Rather than Kula Agara, we can become Kula Bhushana. So this is the supreme instruction which has been given by Krishna. Sadhanam hridayam tvaham sadhavo hridayam tvaham. Managyat te tajanati nate. I always forget the last 2 lines of that verse. Naham te vyo managapi Naham
Adhavoridayam.
Sadhavo Hridayam Manyam Sadhavo Hridayam Tvafam Nate na. Yeah, I can't get it. I've memorized it for years. Ma, what is it?
Naham Tebhyo Managapi.
The second, third line.
Mad Anyat.
Man Manya Te na Jananti Mana Naham Tebhyo Managapi. That.
Tongue twister.
Yeah. It's hard for this Malacha tongue to get the words out. So the conclusion is that what is the heart of Krishna? The heart of Krishna is Krishna's devotees. And if we are honoring Krishna's devotees, serving Krishna's devotees, loving Krishna's devotees, encouraging Krishna's devotees, and praying for Krishna's devotees, it's extremely important that we pray for the success of the devotees. When we do this, we're directly serving Krishna's heart. And this is the ultimate goal of our life, sadhana bhakti, is to please the heart of Krishna. So if we want to please Krishna, Tandera Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas, Janame Janame Hoy, E Avilas. Let's see that this desire is actually manifesting in our heart. This prayer of Narottam Das Thakur is actually manifesting within the core of our heart. And there's some feeling. It's not just being mechanically recited, but we're feeling. Let me go on being in the association of the followers of Rupa Goswami and allow me to serve them, honor them, and receive their blessings. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any reflections?
You can check online.
Rahul Pipalani. Who's that?
Yeah, he's Sachinan from India. Insurance from India.
That's nice.
If we have any online reflections, you can.
We have Vishal Vinod.
Prabhu saying anything?
His camera's on, but I don't see him saying anything. Where's Satvata?
Sometimes he joins through, sometimes he doesn't.
Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe rain, maybe snow.
Okay, you can go back. So remembering Radhi Mataji's story there, she didn't have enough time to chant, so the bead bag would be hung up there and she would chant through her eyes at every beat while she was preparing offerings for it. She would like mentally move one bead when the round was completed, and she would chant all her 16 rounds like that, like just by looking at the beads which was on the wall. She didn't have enough time to.
That's austere.
Yes.
I think at one point she was waking up at 2:30 and chanting many of her rounds before as well.
Yes.
She would wake up very, very early and then pace back and forth in the temple to prevent herself from falling asleep.
Yes. I think I don't know if it is in her book or somewhere. She would tie her hair to a nail on the wall so that she doesn't fall asleep or something like that. Like if she falls asleep, it will pull her hair, something like that. The whole thing, man. Also, bro, I had a question about the offenses you were saying. So there's this pastime of Kunj Krishna Das and Rupa Goswami, where Kunj Krishna Das was the hunchback devotee.
Yeah, correct.
And Rupa Goswami was remembering a pastime of Krishna, and
then
he laughs. But that led to him having some kind of offense. But it was not his intent to offend.
Yeah, that's why we say all offenses committed intentionally or unintentionally. Like when we're like leaving a place and we say, "Please forgive me for any offenses I've committed intentionally or knowingly or unknowingly." There's some offenses which we commit and we're like, "Okay, I shouldn't have done that," and we just apologize. There's also offenses just due to like the psychology of us going through the complexity of Kali Yuga.
Somebody Rupa Goswami's stature going through this.
Yeah. It was to set an example. It's to set an example to just be very careful. Also, Mother Sachi, she was not granted entrance initially into the Mahaprakash Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this was due to an offense to Advaita Acharya. Now, that was a mental offense. In my understanding, this has been a topic of discussion. That, if one is at a particular developmental stage of Krishna consciousness and they commit a mental offense, Krishna is not going to take that so seriously. But the thing is, we have to be careful because whatever is going on in our psychology, thinking, feeling, and willing, it can come out. So even if unworthy thoughts arise in our mind of devotees, we should work to cut it, or at least process it in the association of seniors to come to a higher understanding of that particular person. We should always maintain a high regard for devotees, and even if there's some criticism which comes up in the course of discussing, we should say, yeah, but he's really good at playing the kartals or something like that. There should be some heartfelt appreciation in some way, just to see through the circumstance. So, yeah, that's why we have to be careful. That's why we have to be careful. These examples are there to show us, be very careful. Sadhu swadhan. Be careful, sadhu. Because the path of self-realization is like walking a razor's edge. Any slight inattention, you can cut yourself. So we should be just very careful and not like, what's the word? Neurotic. But careful, and that practically means making a conscious effort to cultivate the positive side of Krishna consciousness. Means rather than being like neurotic, like, oh, am I committing offense? Behave in such a way and interact with devotees in such a way that you're constantly seeking the blessings from them. Like I remember I asked Rajendranandana Prabhu about residing in the Dham, because I was about to go to Mayapur for 5 months. So I asked my Guru Maharaj, what's the mood of being in the Dham? And he just said service. And then he said, you can also speak with Rajendranandana Prabhu. He spends a lot of time there. So just get a sense from him. And Rajendranandana Prabhu said, my main service is just trying to make the devotees laugh and smile. And you can see that's, you met Rajendranandana Prabhu?
San Diego.
San Diego. Were you there at that time when he was there?
For a few months. That was when I moved to San Diego.
Okay.
I think I probably attended 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah. He was an amazing devotee. Very amazing devotee. Very advanced and very strict, but encouraging and affectionate to everyone. So, yeah, I think principle is just interact with the devotees in such a way that you don't unnecessarily draw fire. And even if there's a disagreement, it's best, I have found in my experience, like for instance, I was in a circumstance where I was very unhappy with what a devotee did. I was extremely unhappy. I felt very hurt actually by the whole thing. Because this is someone that I had invested a lot of time and energy into and really cared for. And I felt like I was kind of just like backstabbed in one sense. So I spoke with many seniors about it, and many of them told me, you didn't do anything wrong. Don't feel like you're obliged to him to do anything. But my mind was still a little bit disturbed, and I could see that if I didn't say something to him, the relationship would just become more strained because he may not have the courage to actually come and apologize. So I spoke with one devotee and I said, all these seniors are saying this, but I want to do something. I can't just sit here. And so he just told me, just apologize, even if you didn't do anything wrong. So I just told him, and he said, you should communicate that you value that relationship more than the complexity of the current circumstance. So circumstances will come and go, but our relationships with people are not dependent necessarily on circumstances. Niti Shastra says friends and enemies arise due to circumstances. But relationships amongst Vaishnavas should go beyond the consideration of circumstances, because our Vaishnava relationships are ultimately meant to be transcendental. So I just went up to the devotee and I apologized and I said, I'm sorry. I think I may have done something wrong to offend you. And despite the circumstance which we're currently in, I value my relationship with you more than the circumstances at hand. And I wasn't fully recovered, actually, when I told him this. And it took me some more time to actually be able to forgive him in my heart. But at least in that moment, I made it a point just to set the tone for how I wanted to move forward. And I had my own processing to do. And I was willing to accept that. But at least to set the tone that I want to move things in a positive direction. So we should value our relationships more than the complexity of present circumstances, and make it a point to interact and behave with devotees in the midst of crisis or disagreement. To take any conflict as my fault first. First it was my fault, and that's what's led to this. So that's a few thoughts. Hare Krishna. Do you have anything to say, Kontakarna?
Wonderful class group. They on this part. Very nice connections with the Kulangad and Kulbhushan. Really picked up a good thing. That one should make sure that one is not a stain on the dynasty. So we are in a society of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, so we don't want to become a stain, and we become a stain if we are not able to tolerate. We are quarrelsome and lazy. That is what Kali Yuga is all about. If we are doing the same thing, then it doesn't make any difference. There's no difference between outsiders and us.
Correct.
Prabhupada tells this to Brahmananda on the flight when there was South African team. They had won the World Cup and they were actually smoking in a no-smoking zone in the plane. And I think it was Brahmananda or Shrutikirti. One of the disciples, they told the stewardess, to tell them not to smoke, and she told them, and they stopped. But then they started again smoking, and he was going to say something, the disciple, to these people. But Prabhupada said, if we do this, then what's the difference between them and us?
Correct.
So just tolerate. And then the disciple said, just tolerate. So I like that.
I remember I was with this devotee Krishna nun in India once. And something happened where this devotee was kind of creating, we were chanting in Prabhupada's room in Mayapur. And the person who was overseeing the room, he kind of did something which wasn't very nice, I guess. It was unnecessary. And then I said, should we say something? And Krishna and Prabhu said, no, don't argue, you'll go crazy. He said, there's no use arguing, you'll go crazy.
Yeah. So I really like that mode of being tolerant. That is the Tapodipin. Tolerate and cooperate. It becomes like meditation. The more we do it, the more power we have to handle emotions. It's like a superpower. Tolerance and cooperation.
Yeah, that's true.
And then we get returns on it for the entire life.
Return on investment, like taste in the holy name.
Yeah, you get so many return on investment too. And you just wonder how come Krishna is sending me this help, and that he just comes out of the blue.
Yeah, when you actually undergo the austerity to be that way, and then when you chant the holy names, the holy name reciprocates by giving you more strength to actually be detached from such circumstances. You're able to see things from a tattva point of view and just be detached. Anyways.
And I really like that verse you quoted from Vritrasur.
Aham hari tavat padai
Dasan dasu bhavita asmi bhuya. Manasmareta Supatirgunam Stikrinitva Tekaram Karotukaya. I was memorizing this verse with the Chitta Balram Prabhu when we used to stay together. Every morning when we
Wonderful
would wake
verse.
up, we would chant these verses.
All four of them?
We could memorize the first 2 or 3. I don't remember how many.
There's 4.
Yes,
There's just
these are 4, but we could not do all. This is one of them. So I really like his mood. Dasan Dasu. So I was thinking this is not made up by Gaudiya Vaishnavism. It is
Correct.
there in Bhagavatam. Dasan Dasu.
Yeah, correct.
Dasan Das. That word actually specifically Dasan Das. Not just Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is there in Srimad Bhagavatam.
Mm.
And then he's saying body, mind, and words.
Yeah.
Let my body be used in service of Krishna, let my words be used in glorification of Krishna, and let my mind be always remembering him. That happens by pleasing the devotees. Dasam Dasu.
Mm.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, all the prayers of Richasura are amazing.
Yeah.
Ganganath told me, I don't know where he heard this, so maybe I'll not say it. Anyways, the verses are amazing. I highly recommend studying them.
Yeah, I also like whimsical means one loses the strength to perform devotion.
Sadhana bhakti.
Sadhana bhakti, yeah.
Because whimsical means devoid of interest in the mission of the spiritualness. So one loses strength.
Yeah, that's the result of offending Vaishnavas. And that's why we are not able to chant peacefully.
Correct.
When we have committed an offense, there's something nagging in the heart. Something is wrong. Something. I'm not able to sit down. I'm not able to concentrate.
Yeah.
And when we are pleasing devotees, then chanting becomes smooth.
Yes.
Smooth. Krishna is himself chanting.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful.
Okay. Anything else? I wish Satvata was here.
You can call him.
Is he still living in the Bay Area?
Yeah, he's living with his brother.
Okay. Thank you.